Good morning, guys. How are we all doing? I see that we've got a good few of us tuned into the chat already. So who am I seeing? I've got Sky, Hamish, Aisha, Freddie. Good to see you guys. Emily, you're here. Isa, Sam, Karina, Liam. Shout out to all of you guys. It is great to see you in the house today. Hope you all had a great weekend, guys. Now, just a quick thing about a possible sound issue. I do, unfortunately, have the washing machine on in the background. It's due to finish up soon. Normally, I switch it off, but I'm just going to leave it running because it's a beautiful day, and I really want to get my washing out. So, sorry if that presents any sound issues. I have got my microphone right beside me, so maybe you won't even pick up on it, but you never know. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend, guys. Now, a couple of things that we're going to talk about today. First of all, a wee challenge for you. I want you to try and guess where I am streaming from today. Whereabouts am I seated right now? Obviously, you know the answer is in my kitchen. But no, my little background today, try to guess where you think I am meant to be today. I really wish I could get a wider camera because it keeps cutting off my arms if I do this. I've never quite managed to get the screen dimensions right here, which is a bit annoying. Good guess, Lucy, but it's not the North Pole. Another good guess from Zach there. It's not the Sahara Desert, but I can see why you would say that. Keep your guesses coming while I talk about another couple of things, but see if you can figure out where I am today. Right, other things that we need to talk about. Meetings today. Race Against Time group. I'm meeting you guys at 10:40, all being well, assuming I don't rabbit on too long on this. Dodos Are Forever group. I'm meeting you guys at 11, and Huntress of the Sea group. I'm meeting you guys at 11:20. Please think about any questions that you might have had over the last week's learning, because it's really helpful if you actually come saying, you know what, I found this thing tricky, can you explain it to me? Another thing that's really important, because not everyone seems to have got this message yet, I really, really want you guys to be using the class notebook for posting your work. So there's a good few people that have done it. I probably won't remember everyone that's done it, but I know Sky, you've posted work. Anabia's posted work. We've had Hamish. We've had Audrey. Freya, you did a really good job there. So loads of you have been posting work, and there's more than that as well, but there's still a majority of us that aren't. So try and get on the class notebook. Try and get your work posted. And in terms of doing me a wee favour, if you're posting photos of your work, try and just drag the photos directly in so it's nice and big when it comes up. Some of you have been like attaching it as a file, and then that means I then have to open the file. It's just an extra stage that can be a bit frustrating. So if you can just make it a nice big photo on the page, then that's even better. Okay? Now, I'm noticing, Liam here, you're saying that you're not able to do the moon tracking thing. Don't worry about that. I actually realised that my written instructions hadn't updated, and it still said stuff about Venus on it, which was really annoying because I had edited it, but the edited version didn't upload. So it is supposed to be a moon tracking thing. You are looking at the phases of the moon. Don't worry if you're struggling to do that. Yeah, it does get too dark too late. So look, don't worry about it. It's the problem with doing space this time of year. But you know, I'm just trying to give you activities that you can hopefully use to try and make the whole space thing a little bit more real for you. There is one other activity that we're going to be doing in the nearish future. That's interesting. Sky's saying that the moon wasn't there. This would be really annoying if I've chosen the one time of year where Venus, which is the thing we were going to track originally, which normally moves through the sky. It'd be really annoying if I chose the one time of year where Venus isn't moving and the moon wasn't in the sky at night. I know it's in the sky during the day quite a lot, which makes me think maybe it's not in the sky at night. I'm not completely sure. So, you know what? If I've messed up on both those fronts, I apologise. I've sent you on a fool's errand. Has anyone succeeded in doing the moon tracking thing at all. Let me know if you have managed to do any sort of moon tracking in the comments. I don't know whether that's the case. Oh, and of course, a happy birthday to Callie, who had her birthday on Saturday, I think it was. And I noticed that there were also I think, another couple of birthdays that happened quite recently. I think, was it Rosalind and Ellie, I think? I think there's been a few birthdays recently. So happy birthday to anyone who has had a birthday. Okay, so the moon tracking thing. I'm actually going to show you a video of what you should have noticed and kind of why it happened. So I'm going to switch screens quickly, which will probably show you. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna have to click around a wee bit first. In fact, no. Before I do that, the first thing I'm going to do is introduce our word of the week. So our word of the week this week, which I'm about to type in the comments, is vociferous. Vociferous. So what I want you doing just now is very quickly trying to Google it, define it on Google. Can you be the first person to come up with a clear definition of the word vociferous? And it does. I've chosen this word deliberately because it ties into our writing this week. We're doing persuasive writing, and the word vociferous very much ties into the idea of persuasive writing. So that is our word of the week. In fact, you know what? I'm going to put it nice and big on Active Inspire so you can actually see it on the screen, except that that is glitching out on me. So give me just a second and that should come up for you guys. There we go, except I've got other things that have ended up being typed on the screen. So that is the word vociferous. Do we have definitions coming up from you guys? Let's see. Definitely not poisonous, although it'd be kind of cool if it meant that. It is to do with being persuasive. It's basically to do with giving an opinion in a very strong way. Okay, so if you're arguing for something in a really forceful and powerful way, you're arguing vociferously. Okay, so you can see why it ties into persuasive writing. I'm going to be getting you guys to argue certain things vociferously. So you're going to be vociferous in your writing for the next while because you're going to be arguing things in a loud and forceful way. Think of it. Think of in fact, now here's a guess. Actually, I'm going to guess about the etymology of the word. So the voci part, VOCI, that obviously comes from vocal, to do with speaking. But here's my guess: ferrous. Ferrous. Anyone got any guesses where the word where the ferrous part of that word might come from? I'm going to give you a clue, and it's the periodic table. There is one thing in the periodic table with whose symbol is Fe. So it's a chemical, an element whose symbol is Fe. You're probably not getting it, but it's just to make you think about it. Iron. Iron. The chemical, the old word for iron was ferrous. So vociferous is basically iron speaking. Speaking as hard as iron. Speaking as firm as iron. So if you're arguing something in a very strong, very powerful, vehement sort of way, then you are being vociferous. You are speaking like iron. That's what I'm guessing the root of the word is. I don't actually know that, but to me that would make sense, looking at the breakdown of the word. So that's our word of the week. Now, in terms of where I was, I might as well reveal it to you guys now. So there were no correct guesses as far as I could see. But if I come back to... Oh no, I've disappeared completely. There we go. If I come back to this screen here and you look here, right there, right above my finger, your screen might be too small to see it unless you go full screen. But right there you should see something, and that gives you a clue. Because this right here is Earth. And where we are at the moment is Mars. So this is the Earth viewed from Mars, and that tiny little speck just there, right there, actually I'm holding it, just about holding it in my hands there. That is our tiny little home viewed from Mars, which is actually our nearest planet, really. So yeah, it shows you just how small we are in the grand scale of things, which I think is kind of cool. Anyway, what other things do we need to talk about? So you have a persuasive writing lesson that is online today. So I've already uploaded a video. It went live at, I think, around 8 o'clock this morning. I'd like you to view that before doing any work on your persuasive writing. You do really need to watch the lesson, okay? Another thing that we need to talk about is we're going to be doing another Shakespeare book this week. Now, I was toying between a couple of different books. One possibility was going to be a story called The Merchant of Venice, but some of the themes in that are a little bit complex, a bit complicated to go over without a teacher actually walking you through it. So I decided to go for one that's a little bit easier, and that's Romeo and Juliet, which, okay, yeah, it's a bit of a soppy love story, but actually I'm going to bet that a lot of you don't really know what happens in Romeo and Juliet. It is actually a very good story, and as I've said before, the shortened version that we're reading is brimming with very good vocabulary. It's well written, it's engaging. There's some good examples of juxtaposition. There's a clue for one of your questions that's coming up, but there's good examples of juxtaposition. So lots of really good literary techniques that you can look for in your reading. I'm not, you know what, we're probably not going to do Othello this year, but I could post, if you wanted, Sky, I could post the short version of that story up for you, so that you could read it in your own time. Guilty confession here, I actually have never read Othello. I know nothing about it. I know that I'm pretty sure there's themes of racism and stuff in it, which again is something that I'd prefer to teach with a whole class where I can really go into detail. That was the reason I didn't do The Merchant of Venice with you guys, because The Merchant of Venice doesn't have so much racism, but it's got what's called anti-Semitism, which is to do with not liking Jewish people. It's got stuff about that in it, and so I want, if we're going to do that, it's really important that we do it in detail and really look at, well, why was that a thing? Why did it happen? And all that sort of stuff. Anyway, some of Shakespeare's plays, they do explore some things, and some of it is to do with the time in which they were written, and it's important that you understand that. Anyway, this week is Romeo and Juliet. However, next week, and this is important, there's 37 of you now tuned in. That is 38 of you tuned in now. That's 38 of you that I can get this message out to, so this bit is important. Next week, we are going to start a new, bigger book. So this is going to be a novel that will probably take us till the end of term. It's called Wolf Brother. Wolf Brother. Sorry if it's glitchy, guys. There's not much I can do about it glitching. It's just the way it happens. Anyway, we're starting a book called Wolf Brother. So, if you are able to get a copy of Wolf Brother, then that will really help you. Now, I'm going to do two things to help you. One, I'm going to be posting an electronic version of the text, so an e-text for you, but reading a whole book on your computer screen is not quite as good as actually having the physical copy of the book right there in front of you. So I would try and get a physical copy if you can. The other thing that I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to put up the audiobook version on Teams, which I'm not supposed to do, and I probably shouldn't be shouting about it on YouTube, but I just have. I'm sorry. So technically, I'm kind of breaking some rules there, some quite important rules. But you know what? It's for your education, and I'm hoping I don't get arrested for it. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I'm trying to help a group of kids here, you know, hopefully people will turn a blind eye. So, Wolf Brother is the book that we're going to be reading. it is a good book. It's based in the Stone Age, sort of the Paleolithic or the Neolithic. Sorry, the Neolithic, you would say, which is sort of the proper Stone Age. There's it's kind of an adventure story. Sorry if it's glitchy, guys. I don't know why that's the case. It's slightly annoying. I'm going to close a couple of windows here so that my computer is having to do less. But anyway, yeah, it's based in the Stone Age. It's very, very well researched. That's what I like about it. So we're going to kind of do a mini project about it. Because it's so well researched, the author, Michelle Paver, she has done amazing work looking at some of the wild plants that were used for medicines and for eating. There's one part of it where he ends up going, the main character ends up going hunting, and the way that he uses every part of the animal, I think is fantastic. It's really, really good. There's a lot of tension. Obviously, life wasn't easy back in the Stone Age. I have read it. Yes, I've read it a few times, actually. I really, really enjoy it. Sorry, Liam's asking, have I read it there? Yep. Parts of it are sad. Parts of it are very exciting. But overall, I think it's a very good a very good book. One thing that I will say is it is mythical. You know, there are sort of other weird things going on. There's stuff kind of about spirits and that sort of thing. And so that's the bit that's maybe harder to wrap your head around. But overall, fantastic book. So get a copy if you can. I've just realised that I keep edging off the screen that way. So I'm moving back this way. Right. So, Liam, you've already read the first two books in the series. Hopefully it's not too boring going over it again, but hopefully we'll make you look at it in a bit more detail. Spirit Walker, I didn't enjoy Spirit Walker as much. That's the second one in the series, but Spirit Walker I didn't think was as good. To answer Sky's question, we only have a few copies in school. So if loads of you aren't able to get copies, then that's a bit of a problem. That is a bit of a problem. I will probably be limited in my ability to hand out copies at school because there just aren't that many. But we'll do what we can if that's allowed. Okay? Right, guys. There's not too, I don't feel like I've done much teaching today, but the last two things I'm going to talk about are space. So I did say that I was going to show you a little thing about why the moon appears to not only change shape in the sky, why it goes from a full moon to a crescent moon to so on and so forth, but also why it appears to actually move through the sky. Why is it moving past different stars? So hopefully this video will help to explain it. So I'm actually pulling up someone else's video here. This is not my video. I'm screencasting someone else's YouTube, or I'm about to be, if I can get my browser view up. Here we go. So just so that you can see, in fact, I'm going to move my face over here. Now, I haven't listened to the audio of this video. I imagine that it's fine, but I'm not going to be playing the audio. I'm just going to be talking over a very short part of this video. But if you want to watch the whole thing, I'm assuming it is safe for child viewing. I imagine it wouldn't. By the way, just another aside, Vsauce, this guy here, his videos are always really long and they're quite complicated for kids, but I just love his presentation style. So if you fancy another good video, anything by Vsauce is really, really good. And How Earth Moves is a particularly good one for our topic. But this video here looks pretty good from the little bit that I've seen of it. Earth, Moon and Sun, an Orbit Refresher, and it's by Kelly White. But this little section here I thought was a really good explanation for how it is. So we all know that there's that the moon is going around our Earth, and we know that sometimes it seems to be a half moon, sometimes it seems to be a crescent moon. And the question is, well, why is that? So imagine here that the sun is coming in from this side. So the sun is somewhere Is it over there? I can't even see my face, but you know, where my cursor is, where it says sunlight, the sun would be over here somewhere, and it's shining this direction. Now, that means that half of the moon is always going to be in light, half of the moon is always going to be in darkness. And as it moves around the Earth, a different part of the moon will be in the light, a different part of the moon will be in the dark. However, from Earth, we see different parts of it in light and dark depending on where it is compared to us. So if we play on a wee bit, we should actually see a slow motion simulation. Now that's going far too fast, so let's slow that down a wee bit. So we can see here's the sun, here's the moon, and here's Earth. And Earth is obviously spinning once every 24 hours. However, the moon doesn't spin once every 24 hours. It spins once every 28 days. So let's slow down the playback speed hugely here. So you can see at the moment, right now from Earth, the back side of the moon is in light. And we can only just see this slight edge here. So if we were sitting on Earth here, we would only see this edge in light, which means that we would see a crescent moon. Now, as it moves around, you see more and more of it gets into sunlight. So now if we're on the Earth, we're looking at the moon that way, and we're seeing about half of it in sunlight. So we would see a half moon. As it moves further and further round, eventually we get to almost a full moon. So right now, the sun is shining and we're seeing the full side of the moon in sunlight. As it moves further round, right now, we would see a full moon. Now, you would think at the moment, well, how come the Earth's shadow isn't blocking out the moon? You have to bear in mind that this isn't to scale. The Earth is 300 and something thousand miles away. That's a huge distance. So actually, they're not really this size and this close to each other. They're much more spread out. And so it's far less likely that there's going to be a shadow blocking each other. When that happens, it's called an eclipse, which is kind of cool. So you can either have the moon's shadow blocking Earth, or you can have the Earth's shadow blocking the moon. And both of these things can happen, but they're not that common. So anyway, that's a full moon, and then as it continues to progress, we can see that this side is getting, this side is getting more and more shadowy as it moves around, and then it's in full shadow there, which is when we call it a new moon. So that's a new moon starting. So we don't actually see it in the sky. It's still in the sky, still there, but it's completely in shadow, which means that we're not actually going to see it very clearly because the far side of the moon is the part that's being lit up, the far side from us. So hopefully that makes sense, guys. So that's why there's different phases to the moon. Now, in terms of, hold on, I'm going to come back to, let's come back to our full, wrong thing, full camera. In terms of actually seeing the moon moving through the sky, what you should have noticed, if you were able to do it, if you were able to actually look at it over several nights, what you'd have noticed is that there's several background stars. In fact, I can probably sketch it quickly on Active Inspire. So let's try doing that. We'll go to Active Inspire. Nope, that one. Here we go. Little reminder of our word of the week there. And let's put the moon in, let's paint it that colour. I don't know what that colour is. I'm hoping it's a sort of grey, silvery colour, but it might not be. But there's the moon. I have a habit of confusing grey with pink, so for all I know, that's a big pink moon. I apologise if it is. And we should have a whole load of, in fact, let's paint the night sky black, because that's more realistic. So we've got a nice black night sky, we've got our moon, and then we've got stars in the background. So I'll tell you what, let's draw the Big Dipper, which looks, I think, roughly, oops, oh no, that one's a bit off. I can't remember how many stars are in the Big Dipper, but it looks something like that. Okay, so we've got these fixed stars here, and you know what? I'm going to draw a few mini stars on around the place randomly as well. Okay, so what we should notice is when we're if we're watching how the moon moves, we should find the stars, in fact, we must find that the stars don't appear to move at all. Now, they are all moving, but they're so far away at such colossal distances that we don't notice them moving. We would notice them moving over a span of millions of years, but not over human lifetimes. But they are moving. Every star up there is moving. The moon, however, because it's so much closer, we notice it moving a lot because it's very close to us. And so what we should see is maybe night 1, it's there. Night 2, it's there. Night 3 is maybe over here. Night on night, it will appear to move across the sky further and further. So if you had been doing this and it wasn't so late at night, it wasn't getting dark so late and you were actually able to stay up to do it, what you should have seen is on the first night, the moon would be surrounded by a particular set of stars, but then on the next night, it would have moved a bit compared to the background stars. And the night after that, it moved a bit more. And sometimes it'll appear to move up the way night on night. Sometimes it might appear to move down the way night on night. But that is ideally what you should have noticed if you were able to do it. And yes, to answer your question, Nathaniel, yes, stars move. Stars are moving. We're all in the galaxy, the Milky Way, and everything is moving around a super black, basically a supersized black hole in the middle of the Milky Way, which is colossally huge, and we're all moving around it, but we are moving actually really, really fast, but because we're all moving together, we don't notice the other stars moving as much, but we would over millions of years. Okay, so that is that's the moon, and obviously we notice it moving a lot because it's very close to us. Now, we would have noticed the same with planets as well. So Venus, now I'm going to draw, you know what, I'm going to draw Venus just that sort of size. So it's slightly bigger than any of the other stars, but it's still just, it just looks like a very big bright star in the sky. And you can still see this at night. So Venus is there. Now, what we should have noticed with Venus, if we were able to do it, is that it also moves night on night. So the weird thing about planets is sometimes they'll just drift across the sky, but sometimes they might do what's called there's various words for it. Sometimes it's called moving in retrograde, which is they start going one way and then they go back the other way. Sometimes they'll even draw a loop in the sky. So this is over several days, sometimes several weeks, but Venus, what it's doing at the moment is it's moving up and up and up, and now it's just looped, and now it's moving back and back and back. Which was a bit annoying because if we'd done this activity a little bit earlier or a little bit later, you'd have been able to see it every night moving up just a little bit, but it's annoying that over these few days that we were doing this activity, it's moved up and it's stopped and it's just about to move back again, so you didn't really notice it. But the word planet itself comes from a Greek word which means wanderer. Wanderer. So planets are wanderers. And it's because the ancient Greeks noticed that things like Mars, things like Jupiter, they would wander through the sky. So all the stars in the background always appeared to stay still, but the planets would move around the sky. And so they named them wanderers, which I think is kind of wonderful. So look for that next time. Next time it's dark enough for you to actually see planets, and you'll find that night on night they appear to move. They're not part of any constellation. So the Big Dipper, you should be able to find in the sky, and we're doing a lesson on this later in the week. You've got other constellations as well. You've got things like Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia is called sometimes called the Big W, and it looks a little bit, it's like a W but with a slanty edge on one side. So it's a W that's gone a bit off. But that's Cassiopeia. You've also got Orion. You've got all sorts of constellations. But they don't appear to move very much. But planets and the moon do move quite a lot, which is kind of cool. I like that joke, Liam. Wonderful. Wonderful. Very good. Points to you there. What was the thing I was going to tell you on Monday that was going to make you happy? I can't think. Was it starting the new book? I feel like it was something else, but I can't think. What was the context in which I was talking about it? I'll maybe go back and look at my video and see if that refreshes my memory. It wasn't Sports Day. It wasn't Sports Day. I can't think, guys. I'm sorry, I've dropped the ball on that one. I think it probably was just Wolf Brother. I have a no, you've reminded me, Callie. Yeah, I need to confirm with Miss Lindsay about that actually, because we were going to announce something, and then we've not gotten round to actually confirming to announce it. So I'm not going to say today. I'm going to say this week we will announce, hopefully, something. I'm just reading the team's comments here, but yeah, that's fine. So we'll try and... I'm sorry, I know you want to know, guys. I'm stringing you out a wee bit there, but I'll try and announce it at some point soon. Anyway, guys, I'm going to sign off just now. So we've talked about a few things. New reading book, get Wolf Brother if you can. Word of the week, vociferous, to argue things firmly. You've got a persuasive writing lesson. Watch the video and then do the activity. It's a fairly simple activity. And space. We've talked a little bit about why the moon has different phases and why it appears to move across the sky. Anyway, that's your lot for today. Meeting 3 groups later, so get to those meetings if you can, and bring a question with you if you can. Cheers for now, guys. Take care of yourselves, and get out in the garden or go for a walk or something and enjoy this sunshine while it lasts. Cheers all.